Good morning, Alana. So great.
Good morning, Rada.
How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. I'm so excited to talk to you today and get going at some interesting topics we have.
Yes, so let's dive right in. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, I made an introduction, but would you like to share a little bit about the work you do?
Yes, I would love to. So I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and I have been studying how the mind works for at least, I would say, probably like 7 or 8 years now. And I'm fascinated with the whole concept of our minds being like computer systems and how we're technically programmable people. And so I love to discuss, ideas that are expanding and opening and, you know, things that can really bring the mind to get its I want to say closure in a way. And it's okay, so its closure is like understanding where our limits are and why there's limits there and how they've been placed there and how through trauma our minds can be, I would say, covered over. And so when we break apart the layers of the mind, we get to really see what's there and how it's affecting us today. So I study the mind, I study metaphysics, and it's a passion of mine. And
today we're going to be talking about deprogramming, and our show is called Deprogrammed, and we both have a lot of experience going down this rabbit hole. I encountered this concept or idea both from the work that we do and for me personally through I would say personal experiences too. I spent a long time deprogramming myself after being heavily programmed. So it's personal, but it's also collective. And I think it's really important for people to know because we have to sort of understand what's going on before we have any real sovereignty. Because if you don't know, you don't know, right? So you have to learn first, like, hey, well, what's going on in my mind? Why do I think like this? And are these thoughts really, really mine, or are these just sort of programs that are running?
It is both, right? It's both.
Yeah, both. Exactly. So let's just jump right in. What do you know about this? What would you like to share about this today?
Okay, so as I was saying, you asked me, I was trying to explain what I do, and then it gets into like, there's so many different aspects to it. When we study the mind and we learn how the mind works, we know the brain is a program. And, people don't fully understand that there are systems of set programs running. And so sometimes we're accidentally programmed, and sometimes it happens purposely through different programs that are called programs by different groups of, I would say, they are sorcerers, they're magicians, they are masters and manipulators of our physical universe. And we can see this a lot in movies, and we think, oh, they're just movies. We don't really, that stuff doesn't really exist. But as we dive deeper into understanding occult wisdom and how we have been given a set of programs to cover up our true potential, our true divinity and sovereignty, as you say. And so we're basically trapped in matter by these illusions and all these distortions. And so they've actually been injected into our consciousness. And so when I say you're accidentally programmed, or is it purposeful? And I like to say, I want to talk more about accidentally being programmed, just for people, just for those who are not aware of what we call the conspiracy theories. I don't want people to get turned off by it, because I don't want to turn people off, because it's so important that they understand and learn how it works before they just, push it aside and say it's not important to them. And so when you're accidentally programmed, I'll start by our understanding of what suggestibility is. So in my clinical hypnotherapy training, we learned that suggestibility is how we take in information, how we learn, and how we are subjected to taking advice from our environment and those around us.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in trauma, you're more likely to be suggestible to certain things right away than you were when you would. And also, if you look at your chart in astrology and you look at how what you need to work on as far as an expanding soul, you would know that your mind might be more open than others. And so even the people who have the closed mind in their tend to be just as suggestible because they're not they can't think more outside the box, so they're subjected to being inside the box. So accidental programming happens when you're say you have parents that are fighting all the time, or you have some type of distress happening in your life, and you can watch movies. I would say Disney is a great example. I like to call this one. I didn't coin it, but I found it. It's called princess programming.
Oh,
And
yeah.
little girls are all programmed by the princesses. And I know this is true because this is how I woke up, because I started realizing that there were different altered states that I would go into. This was older in my life when I realized that music was influencing me. And I remembered how the Disney movies influenced me, and little girls are influenced by Disney today in different ways. But princess programming is a huge one because it invokes a certain type of behavior pattern in little girls. It causes them to have this like damsel in distress thing going on, or they're seeking out boys in such a way because the princesses are always going for some man that they know nothing about, and disobeying their family, and there's always some type of weird conflict going on, whether or not it's purposely done by the people who create these shows and movies, or if it's just done accidentally because of our beautiful creative abilities. I don't really want to say yes or no to that. I definitely know there's some purposeful stuff happening here, but the accidental part just happens because that's how our minds are made. It is made to cover up and protect us. So I could go on and on. So I just want to make sure that I'm staying on topic with what is aligned with.
No, definitely. I mean, princess programming is such a big one for women. And I know that I, for one, have have had princess programming. I grew up with fairy tales and, Disney movies, and all of them are this, girl who basically she sort of loses her identity, and she feels she kind of struggles a lot in her childhood, and then she sort of has this man or prince pick her up and save her. And everything's great after that. And that was a huge program for me, and also for my clients that I work through. But that programming can be so dangerous and so toxic, and lead you into toxic relationships, because it teaches women that you're not supposed to take your power. Like, in order to be loved, and this is, you have to sort of give your power away, and you cannot claim it for yourself, because if you do, your Prince Charming won't love you. In other words, you need to trade up your power and personal power in exchange for love, right?
Yes. And what you just hit on is the whole covering up of the feminine, and not just the feminine, but the matriarchal understanding of Godhead, like the mother aspect of God. And that's exactly why you and I in particular are so drawn to this information, because this is the time when it's coming to the surface and we're having our galactic memories restored.
Yes.
Excuse me. And so we can see through the illusions of these things now. So that's why it's exciting to talk about it, because women and men both alike are both being under mind control in different aspects, and it's affecting our ability to unite together in the Hyros Gamos union of our sacred relationships and divine love ships, I would like to say.
Oh, it's so true though, because you see the men also have heavy programming, where they have the alpha programming, and they feel like they have to be superior, they have to dominate, they have to be in control all the time. They can't feel their feelings. It's like they're not allowed to, they don't have access to their emotions. And so what happens is the masculine and feminine are unable to bond as a union. And in a way, it's like the feminine is kind of always reaching for the masculine doesn't want, it's like he's not trained to hold the feminine in her full womanly power, you know? And the feminine also has conflict with the masculine. And so it's this sort of ping pong of pain, I call it, that goes back and forth. And it's like, when is this going to end? But it's really going to end when we start to unwind the programs within ourselves personally. And then, you know, I think when we take responsibility for starting to do that, or find someone that's trained, such as Alana or myself, you know, then, you know, get the support you need, because it's really important that that you start unwinding these programs, because
I
they
love how you just said unwinding,
mm-hmm.
because it literally is like an unwinding. Like you can literally like shake your head around and unwind all the
Mm-hmm.
programs. Yes. I love that.
It's so important, and that's where we start to open up to our true self. And like you said, our galactic memories are coming back. They're being activated for a reason, and we want to make more room inside of ourselves. And like you said, we are like a computer program. You know, when you have too many programs running, you cannot add another program. I couldn't update my computer the other day because it was too full. So I had to delete some old programs before I could even update my new program, you know? And so we are the exact same way. We have to start deleting old programs that are really not for our highest and best good. But you might need to find someone skilled enough to help identify what programs are running. And I think most people probably know in some ways like what's going on, because they keep coming into the same issue over and over again. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And you said, when we said unlocking galactic memories, I also think of that as cellular memories that are locked inside of our body. And so one reason why the dark forces, I would say, of course, when I say dark forces, I want people to know that I do have done research and understand the difference between our shadow and darkness, and how dark and shadow is not necessarily a bad thing. But what lurks in the darkness can sometimes be not have your best interest in mind, right? So when I say how these things are affected, is that cellular memories get locked inside of our body because the trauma is locked inside of our body. And when we release the trauma, the memories are able to come forth, and that's healing, when you're able to release those things. Otherwise it sticks in your body and it causes you to get sick. It causes a lot of things. And so one thing that they keep us in is a docile, low vibrational state. It could also mean that they keep us in our lower mind. And even if I say they, it also is accidental. So keep in mind that everything I say, that could be either what we call like done to us, or something that happened by just chance in your environment. So when we start to do sessions with someone, you will notice that you might even start to feel better when you really start looking at your different experiences, or things that you don't even remember that happened to you. And some people would say, well, don't you think that's better that we don't know, because then it affects us? Well, no, I don't think that, because you might think that, and once you think about it and deal with it, that it's just going to bring it up and it's going to make you depressed. But that's why you're depressed, maybe, is because it's locked inside of you and you don't even know. Your body remembers what your mind can forget. So
True.
Yeah. So the law of cause and effect has trapped us here. And because of suggestive programming and, advertisements and, I also believe that if you go deeper into occult knowledge and metaphysics and astrology, I believe that for those who do believe in reincarnation, that if we had an understanding of these things, we would not be stuck on this wheel of reincarnation so strongly. We would be able to expand and maybe reach a level of enlightenment sooner as a collective, if we all were taking responsibility for the things that have happened to us and how suggestible we are to our environment.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that the way that it is right now, it's there's just so much in our environment that it's impossible to not have accidental programming, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere in every corner and facet of our life. It's telling us who to be, how to be, and what to be, for men and for women and for everyone. And so there's no way to not come across it, to not be influenced by it, you know. And I think even as much work as I do, I can see sometimes, like with fashion and stuff like that, it's like easy to just like look at something and then get influenced. So I'm very cautious of that now, and I do not buy fashion magazines. I don't buy into the trends. I don't look for that. I used to, you know, get all the magazines and I would want to stay up. I used to be a fashionista and have to get everything that was coming out. And I'm like, wait a minute, who's this benefiting? Not me, you know. And I just believe that it's really important
I
to
think that's the plastic.
monitor.
That's the plastic agenda. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes. Say it again. Did you say plastic?
Plastic agenda, and it literally is the plastics. It came to me in a vision before understanding how plastic. It came to me as the word plastics. PLSTYX. Plastics. I don't know why, but that came to me, and it is a program, and that's why you feel that need to keep up with everything.
No, I don't feel that need anymore. I'm living right now in Appalachians, and I'm so happy because I don't feel bombarded is the word, truly the word, bombarded with garbage, you know, coming into my consciousness all the time. I mean, my greatest influence is nature, and I stick with that. And I think when we come back to nature, we come back to ourselves. We are so under, you know, amnesia, that really we want to come back to who we truly are. The fastest and easiest way is to come back to nature. Take your shoes off, go walk in the forest, go lean on a tree, go take a deep breath. We want to keep coming back to the holistic way of being, and it's the opposite of plastics, right? So the plastics will have you going, you know, fast for nothing, and trying to gain all of these things. There's nothing wrong with having beautiful things. Trust me, I love beautiful things. I have beautiful things, but I'm not a slave. I'm not a slave to chasing all that stuff anymore. So it really makes a difference. It takes a huge stress out of your life when you start to unwind these programs. And also it's much more cost efficient too, because I noticed like I was buying the same thing over and over and over and over again without even realizing I was getting it. Like I would keep getting like the same dresses or the same makeup or the same things over and over. And I was like, why do I have so many of these? Like, what's going on? When I started to clear stuff out. And it's just, that's what programming does, is you don't even realize that you're doing it, you know?
Do you know that I've been really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's making me nervous to see, you know, when I was younger, I definitely was like into chasing boys, and I loved makeup at an early age, and I wanted to wear thongs, you know, and I'm thinking, where did this stuff come from? And I look back and I can see the difference now in the children and how they're influenced and their style of clothes. They're all dressing the same now. A lot of them are like the cutoff shirts and the little tight jeans. And I just can't believe that that's the kids' culture now. You don't find kids' clothes anymore. They're not wearing cute little kids' clothes.
No.
And it's very interesting how that correlation of when I was little, and I can see now exactly where things came in and where and how those behaviors came in. Yeah. And I really think it has a lot to do with a purposeful division between men and women. And I see it too, how it's, I guess I don't want to get too off topic with the division of men and women, but I definitely think that has something to do with part of the programming here is to stop these divine connections. Like, it's more than just getting together and having a baby. You know, when two people get together and there's extreme love involved, it raises the vibration of the planet.
This is so true.
Yeah, and so these programs are built in order to keep us so distracted that we don't even get in touch with our divinity. But it's beautiful because we're seeing a lot more of it happen now. And with the internet and YouTube, there's people making videos. And I've watched so many videos of people's perspective on mind control. And there are different programs being ran. And I'll name a couple of them, programs that we have going on. We have the Princess Program. We have Beta Sex Kitten Programming. We have trauma-based mind control. We call it SRA. Also is satanic ritual abuse. and MK Ultra. And MK Ultra is a big one. It's pretty intense to really talk about these subjects that are kind of uncomfortable, right?
Oh my gosh, really, it's really true. And it's, you know, and then also don't forget the Monarch programming.
Oh yes.
Monarch butterfly transforming into the new you. But really, that's a really, really, I mean, they're all just,
to break you open earlier. That's what they do in the industry. They want to break you open really early and put you in all these situations to where you are not, your innocence taken away, but it's also in a way you want to believe that it's freeing, because people are getting money to do whatever they want. They're able to express themselves, but they don't realize that their way of expressing is infecting other people.
It's a controlled expression too. It's controlled, and it's because really they're not expressing anything new. It's the same in the same box. It's like, I don't see anything new coming out of their expressions. There's nothing new. It's the same sexiness. It's the same poutiness. It's the same stuff. It's the same songs over and over again. It's the same films. You're not really being fully self-expressed as a human. You think you're being expressed. You think you have freedom, but you're just a caged animal. And you're not really truly having full sovereignty. And at the end of the day, there is always a price to pay. And
it's your soul.
It's your soul, but it's also the trauma that goes on in between. You know, I'll go into that maybe in another podcast, because it's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And
as a shaman, I bet you have a lot of women come in, even men, that have these programs, and you could see where they're locked in there, in between, like you said, in between all of those things, which is like between our different levels of the layers of our bodies, our spirit body, our mental body, our physical, our different layers that we exist. They're all distorted because of
You're right. It's like you can look so beautiful on the outside and look like this incredible, like something everyone would envy, but at the same time your soul you're fragmented. Like, it doesn't matter how someone looks. People, listen to me really clearly. It doesn't matter how someone looks. If it's a guy who looks like a superhero and has all the best cars and everything, or if it's a woman that looks like a supermodel, sex symbol, it doesn't matter how they look. I have so many people living in Hollywood Hills. I mean, I have had a lot of celebrities come, and of course I had to sign all the, you know, contracts, confidentiality. But you know, sometimes I'd go to the studio lots and do personal sessions, you know, and, you know, let me just tell you, not everything is how it looks. Not everything is how it seems.
Nope.
It's easy to fall into being a slave of illusion and worshiping people and things that you know nothing about. You know, we're giving our power every day when we look at magazines and worship how someone looks. It's dangerous. When you go on TV and you're like worshiping a certain celebrity or something, you know, it's just, you want to be careful to what you're putting your attention to. Yeah, and what you're putting on a pedestal. And if you're worshiping like either just beauty or just money or just power, you're actually giving your energy away to something that's you're never going to get a return on your investment there. I'll tell you that. You know, you won't. And you want to really claim this life as yours and as a sovereign being. You know, it's easy. Really good people get trapped in really bad situations. Let me just put it that way. You know, it's
but why
is
that? Why is that? You just made a really good point, that good people get trapped in these things. And why? Well, it's because I believe that there's those who have known ahead of time who is going to be what and who's going to be is going to be what through remote viewing or whatever powers they have, and they can see whose bloodlines to control at low buzzes, and you know which women to target, and so they send out their minions and they target these people, and they cause soul fragmentation purposely. And all these severe addictions on the planet are caused by these severe soul fragmentations. By the astral body and that in between world that you mentioned. It causes splitting. And it causes damage to the nervous system and to the light body and to the brain itself.
It's so true. I really appreciate you saying that. And I mean, I'm just going to briefly bring in the princess programming, because that really was like an altar that affected me. You know, when I was a little girl, I remember having like 10 or 20 Barbies and then seeing them naked and then being like, oh my God, as a 5-year-old, I was like, I have to look like that when I grow up, you know? And then getting triggered by these little fairy tales I was watching. And then later it was Pamela Anderson. And, there were certain triggers, and I remember them being actually triggers inside of me, like, oh, now it's time for me to get breast implants. It was almost a trigger, and there was nothing anyone could do or say to stop me. It's like I had to do it. It was part of the programming that I had. And so, in order to be a lovable, beautiful princess, I had to get that programming, and that programming led into other programmings, which I'm not going to discuss on this show, but it's like, they lead into they morph into other, other programs. And, you know, they're so toxic. And so I can't even tell you how much pain these programs can cause a person. As someone that's been through it myself, I know that it's so damaging, but I'm so grateful that I found ways to unwind and to deprogram, because it is the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, when I went into the healing work and really started to access these other points, it just saved my life. I was on a path that was leading towards like falling off a cliff and dying, you know, with these programs. They were leading me towards a very, very dark path. And I'm really grateful that I get to work with people and help them deprogram too. I think it takes someone that's been through something like this to understand how it works and to have compassion enough to say, hey, it's not your fault. You were programmed. You didn't know, you know. Sometimes you can't help things if you don't know. You're just running on autopilot, and it's not your fault. So if you're going through that, you know, please know that it's not your fault. And if you're listening to this, then there's a reason, there's a purpose. And if you have a program running, then you can get help. That's a wonderful thing about it, is that this isn't permanent. Like, you know, everything is reversible. That's why, you know, you can get deprogrammed just as easily as you can programmed, right? So I would say the deprogramming is much harder, and maybe it's a painful process, but the truth is the programming was a painful process too.
You just don't remember.
You just don't remember how painful it was, but it was a painful process, and it had its own tortures too. So you know, to unwind from that is liberation. That's sovereignty. That's truth. That's light. That's love. That's being so loving to yourself, to say, no more. I am not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to subject myself to this kind of programming.
You said
I won't.
It's truth. You said it was, you said just now that it was light and it was knowledge, right? I'd like to also add that it's also information, because information is light. And when you're your information, your all of your pieces are coming back together, because the soul fragmentations, the soul splitting happens from this programming. And when your soul splits, you allow yourself to be open to entities and attachments.
Yeah.
And a lot of these occult, you know, the dark satanic occult energies, they purposely call in these entities and these attachments, and they can attach to the children. So if your parents were involved in cults or dark rituals or black magic or sacrificing or anything like that, children have attachments on them naturally. So you're not sometimes you're not yourself when these things happen, and you can't really be mad. You know, it's like you have to have compassion when you're going through these things for whoever's involved, because everyone's trapped by these illusions. And so that's the way to win. That's the way to get out of this, is really we have to overcome our fears and dissolve the darkness that exists in the layers of our mind, so we can be free of mental bondage, right?
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you. Yes to that. That was a gorgeous image, just seeing like the bondages being broken. And I think, you know, people are afraid of taboo subjects. There's a fear about talking about things that are unconventional. But to me, there's no fear, because there's freedom. Rather, to me, there's a freedom. If you're willing to look, you might find something. You know, it pays to be curious, you know, and it pays to at least explore, because you never know.
You just said it pays to be curious, but I think it's funny how they injected in our consciousness that curiosity kills the cat, right?
Of course, because they don't,
everything's opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite. We're running in a world that is reflecting opposite. And so you do need to be curious. You do need to do research. You need to be somebody that is willing to look and not be afraid. Everyone wants to hide. And I think in this new age culture, a lot of people are like, that's negative. I'm only focusing on the positive and I'm manifesting the positive. And that's true. You can manifest positive by thinking positive. But if you have old funky programs running, no matter how much positive you manifest, the old programs are going to outweigh the new ones. So you could be living like a, you know, like a queen in a castle, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything's gone. You know, because your program, your other programs are more dominant because they're installed deeper into you. Because, you know, there's many layers, like hypnotherapy. You know that there's many layers to your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to get the old program out before you install a new one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking that some people would feel that they're okay. What I'm trying to say is that there's some movies that we watch and things that we like, right? For instance, I talk about all this stuff, and I would love, you know, I'm working on a script, or like I'm working on writing a book about it, and oftentimes our beautiful creation that we're making, it can tend to influence others. And that's why I've been afraid of creating things, because I know how much my influence can affect a child or someone, and accidentally or purposely. And so I think making disclaimers when people make movies and they make things, I work with World Trust Media Network, and part of their programming is called the T300 programming. The idea that was created by Shelley Robinson, a good friend of mine and a spiritual teacher. She talks about how we're instilling a new way of being through media, through truth, trust, and transparency, which means that when you're making a movie and you're making something that has sigils, it has symbols, it has things, you have to make a disclaimer. This movie may affect your brain wave. It might affect your way of thinking. And so these are real things that we have to take into account now. Children need to be explained that some of the stuff they're watching is not real. And that, yes. But the same thing is that it looks very real, and it kind of is. When you're acting out something, even if it's not real, it is real. It's still, you're doing it. You're still living out that experience. And so, and we're watching it, and people like to be entertained. And I think that people that entertain kind of scare me a little bit, and people that need to be entertained scare me a little bit too. We have to find a balance of creation here, because I'd rather we create everything that we want than have to be told that we can't do anything through censorship. So I'm totally in the middle between this beautiful creating stuff, because we can't go back now. We're never going to go back and change this, because the creation's already happening, and it needs to happen, because this is part of our awakening. And absolutely. So through all of these programs and through everything, we have to find that mental and emotional freedom. And so that way we're not so automatic, and we have to raise the frequency of fear and up into the higher realms of this creative ability that we have.
It's important. I think a lot of the entertainment coming out is toxic. It's really toxic. That's why I don't watch movies. That's why I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch TV. I gave my TV away. I don't want it. There's nothing on TV right now that's getting, you know, that I feel moved by. I believe there needs to be a whole new paradigm when it comes to entertainment, conscious entertainment. It's like every time you watch a movie, you're getting hypnotized, and you're getting downloaded with everything in there. That's why you can do product placement, and it's even a Pepsi in the background is getting installed into.
I love how people tell me, "Oh, I can't be hypnotized." I'm like, "You're my favorite person to hypnotize," because like I love people.
You're already hypnotized.
Exactly. We are programmable, hypnotized people. That's why they've gotten so good at doing these advertisements. You can't even notice them anymore.
Nope. No, and I'm ready for a new paradigm with entertainment. You know, my background is in producing.
World Trust Media.
And yeah, and you know, it's important for people to, but it needs to be more. It needs to come more and more to the to the forward. Like I'm creating a script, I'm making a film, and the thing is, like, there's not, like, for funding, it's hard to get funding for more conscious things, so funding is a big deal. Without funding, how are you going to make a film? How are you going to create, but because a lot of everything that gets funded is usually like horror or things that are more destructive in nature, because investors think that's what makes money, that's what people want, that's what they're hungry for. But I do think things are changing, and my intention is really to create content that is much more enlightening and inspiring, and just, we're ready for something new. We're on a precipice of huge change, and I really believe that the conscious people that are coming together, we are the change makers, and we have to find a way to create a new niche for media that is transformative mentally, emotionally, and that is uplifting and inspiring, So it is going to be more popular, I believe, in the future, as this stuff starts to fade away. But there's an addiction, and I think we need to be honest about it.
It's called addiction webbing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a huge addiction, and people are they're thirsty for this. They're thirsty for what they're used to. So it first starts with the self before anything else, and from there we can be open to other things. But I think we have to understand that people already are addicted. So are you addicted to watching too much, horror movies or drama or Kardashians or pornography or whatever it is that the addiction is?
They have attachments.
What are you?
They have attachments on them,
Yeah.
because I've seen them and I felt them. If you're kind of have an ability to see, if you have the eyes to see, then you can see that how they jump out at you, literally. Like, I watched Fantasia before from Disney, and it affected me so strongly, because it was so, I could see the occult in it so strongly that it was dark. It was so dark. That movie is very dark, and it's something attached on me, and like literally jumped in my throat, and I came down with the flu in that instant of watching it. I got a sore throat, my throat closed up. Like, it was just, I didn't eat anything. It was nothing about that. Like, I knew psychically what happened, and the addiction webbing is real. So I have a question for people listening. Are you someone's experiment? Are you being played to some extent through these addictions?
That's a very important question. A really, really important question. Thank you.
Off in the quiet zone now.
Well, no. I think it's we're just letting that question sort of settle in for people. Sometimes, like, people need to think for themselves. You can tell people stuff as much as you want to, but the truth is they have to sort of question it themselves. Until they do, there's no change. And people don't, and change is hard. People don't want to change. It's one of the hardest things to do, because they know that there's a lot of work involved in resetting your programs. Like, I put in so many hours and so much work, and devoted myself so much to really understanding the programs and understanding how to deprogram. So I understand. Trust me.
Unlearning hurts.
Unlearning hurts, and it can change your life so much. But it's always going to be for the better. Sometimes, like, the things that you think are convenient, or easy, or you don't want to look at it, everything gets turned on its head, but then you get to really be empowered from it. Like, old relationships will start to fade away that were not serving you. Like, the sort of type of relationships that you have start to shift. Things that you call into your life. But to me, it's all about quality. I rather have quality than quantity. That's my perspective. But anyhow, well, thank you so very, very, very much, Alana, for coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just quickly, you said, there's a few things that you said. It's so hard for me, because I have so much, like, 40 minutes is just not even close to the stuff that I really think that we can scratch upon. We're just touching the surface of a few of these topics, but it is important to understand that when you have been a victim of mind control or a victim of any of these programs, you do have a tag on you. And you do not to scare you, not to make you paranoid. No, this is to give your power back. It's the complete opposite. So because of these, I want to mention just briefly, I looked up the Ascension Glossary definition of addiction webbing, and because you brought up these addictions. And so it's important to know that through the negative agenda, there's a coded implant and a mechanism that acts like a tick or a leech that it buries itself deeper into the lower areas of the astral body, mostly in the second chakra, and into the instinctual response functions of the central nervous system. From the second level of the chakra layer, and we call it infection, if the addiction becomes severe over time, repetitive destructive reactions and spiritually abusive behaviors as the response to external stimulus, it affects and eventually embeds itself deeper into the energy matrix of the light body. So if a false web work is created, like a spider web, and it's like a film over your consciousness, and it acts to overlay on the nervous system, and so therefore it infects the entire system, right? And it winds up the spinal cord, which blocks your kundalini, which is your dragon, your inner being. And you will have the trigger implant placed in the back of the head and the neck, which means that every time something happens to you, you might get, like, I used to get these really intense, like something was just stuck on my neck when I would be under distress, excuse me. And so these severe addictions can come as mood swings. It can come as bipolar, manic, depressive, and there are different signs of mental, emotional instabilities, which cause a weaker immune system, and then ultimately soul fragmentation, where your soul just leaves the body. So the reason why I wanted to say this really fast is just so that way people can understand that because of these things, you wonder why are these bad things happening to me? And because you have a great purpose, because of your ability to manifest, and because of your ability to create, you're just a target to things. And so finding the help that you need to get rid of these addictions, to figure out, to not be so hard on yourself, to know that it's not always you, and that you are still a beautiful child of the universe, and that, to be easier on yourself in the process.
It's beautiful. Oh my gosh. What you said just led me. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you for like hours and hours, and that's so beautiful and so true. And that's what I see so much when people come to me, is like there's this entity attachment that's hooked up to their nervous system. They literally wrap around like a vine, like, and it's almost like choking or strangulation of their system, energy system.
It's hell.
And it's hell. And people wonder why, in America we have so many mental health issues, and I'm not saying that they're not real, but look at other alternative causes. If you look at the root source in shamanism, we look at the soul as like a blueprint for like what's going on, and also, like you said, the astral, in the astral plane, so much goes on that you cannot even imagine. And when I do my healings, a lot of times I'll go there to figure out what's going on their astral body that is affecting them in their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body. It's all tied in, and it's just to the benefit of self to step into this and to look into it, and to not be afraid, not be paranoid, not come at it like, oh my gosh, what is, this is so scary, or this is a conspiracy theory. Like, no, it's really not a conspiracy theory. It's just science, and you just have to be willing to have an open mind. Having a closed mind is like, that's also my control too, because it's like, holding back from being able to move outside of the box that you're in. It's like nothing is real outside of the box that I'm in, and that's just not true either. So, that's a dangerous place to be too. I like to explore everything, and I think that you can come to your own conclusion. You can decipher, but at least take a willingness to look deeper, for, if nothing else, for yourself, and also for your family and the people that you love, because it affects everyone. And when you start to realize that, then you can start to really from a place of empowerment, you know? Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. There's just so much, like, I love this. And I love the freedom aspect of it. I love truth being told, and even if it's uncomfortable, because there's so much that we can't see. And so there are people who are here first to help those awaken, and the ones who just don't want to or are not going to, those people are just as important too, because they help us awaken. And we just got to keep the light in our eyes. We got to keep our light lit, our houses inside of us, our mansions lit. We have to keep our temple lit, and don't let anything take your light away, because anytime you start feeling that takeover happening, just go back. Remember to go back to your truth, go back to your strength. Remember that you are just as important as anything that's trying to control you.
Yeah, so beautiful. So beautiful. And, just take a deep breath. This is a big conversation we had. So everyone just take a deep breath together. And breathe. The more you take time to take deep breaths and really just breathe through everything. There's a lot coming at us in life right now, but the more you take time to breathe and tap in and tune in and take time for yourself, this is a process, and trust me, we are all in this together. So we're all doing our different parts, and I thank you so much, Alana, for coming on. I love you. I love your wisdom, and I definitely would love to have you come on again. So until then, have a beautiful, glorious day. So much love, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.